Welcome, my friends, to our video looking at the solar eclipse, the new moon eclipse, on the 22nd of September in most parts of the world. Eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees. This is such an exciting event. We look forward to eclipse season every year because it brings about the changes and the energetic shifts that have been building in our souls for up to 6 months since the last set of eclipses. Let me tell you all about this particular chart of the eclipse. We're going to be looking at the fact that this eclipse is at the degree of Leo. It's at the anaretic degree of Virgo, the 29th degree. It's opposite Saturn and Neptune. It's trine to Pluto and Uranus. Now that forms a very interesting shape that is going to have a big effect on this eclipse. It's over 10 degrees from the nodes, which is why this is a partial solar eclipse, not a total solar eclipse. And it's also conjunct the fixed star Markeb. We're going to be exploring all of this, plus having a look at the lunar mansion this new moon eclipse is falling in as well. It could be a really wild ride, this eclipse, my friends. It's an extremely mixed bags of blessings and cursings. So be sure to keep your karma clean around this time, the week before and the week after the eclipse, by interacting with love and integrity and higher mindedness at this time. And look, if you feel like it's all too much, it's perfectly okay to stay tucked up under the covers if that's what you need. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about not only the structure of this particular chart that I've just described, all the pieces playing into this are going to be causing. I'm going to also be talking about the nature of solar eclipses, the new moon in Virgo energy. We're going to be looking at the chart of this eclipse, which I've just mentioned all the components of, and the energies they're going to bring to this eclipse time. We're going to be looking at where this eclipse is going to be visible and what this means. We're going to look at also what, if you join my Patreon family, you'll be able to have a look at what it means when key planets in your personal chart are interacting with this eclipse. We're going to be looking at the Saros cycle of this eclipse, and we're also going to be looking at the effects of this eclipse on your sign. Now, I mentioned that my Patreon family members will be getting information on their personal planets interacting with this eclipse within a couple of degrees or 5 degrees either side. But my Patreon family members will also be getting an extended personal all signs breakdown for this report, exploring how the eclipse will affect them personally in greater depth than I have time to offer here on YouTube. So you can join the Patreon family. The link's in the description below. You'll learn so much and be so richly blessed by our beautiful Guiding Star family at Patreon. Also, I want to mention, don't forget to join me if you want to find out more about eclipses and how they work with a big in-depth 20-hour course. Really, there's so much to share. Your knowledge will just explode regarding eclipses and the nodes of the moon. I have 2 courses. One is called Eclipses, obviously, and it's roughly a 5-hour course. And then I have a 15-hour course looking at the nodes of the moon and everything involved with the nodes, which are the causes of eclipses. So these are really special webinars. They're on sale now at my website. Do check that out. The link is also in the description below. And on a final note, forgive my shameless promotion of what I offer for your education and growth in astrology, but I am so excited to announce that I have a new website currently being built. It should be ready in about roughly, I'm thinking, a month, ready to launch with so many new goodies. It is going to blow your mind. So do stay tuned to my YouTube channel because I'm going to be announcing all these specials and offerings. I will also be returning to doing readings in a live reading format, one-on-one with you. So these are all going to come out in my brand new website that is going to be released in about a month. So do stay tuned. It's going to be very special. I'm excited about this launch and I want to get everybody hyped up and ready now in readiness for this wonderful, I think, exciting event. But now let's have a look at this eclipse. Now let's talk about the nature of solar eclipses, which are new moons on steroids, and what they usually do. New moon eclipses usually trigger events within a week either side of the eclipse, and then up to 6 months afterwards. So a week roughly either side of this eclipse on the 22nd of September, it's important to notice everything that's happening around you, everything that's happening in your life, the feelings that you've got, the changes in attitude, the changes in life experience that you might notice, because they are going to be important focuses for you in the coming 6 months as this eclipse plays out. that's the general consensus of how we calculate eclipse trigger times. But according to my teachers and my own observational research, I can tell you that we have actually been in an active phase of manifestation for this eclipse since around the 3rd of September. And we will stay in this active phase of manifestation until the 11th of October. So do keep those dates in mind, because anything that falls within those dates is, according to my knowledge about eclipses, is going to be the active time. Now, interestingly, just before an eclipse occurs, both a full moon eclipse or a new moon eclipse, there's always a drop in the Earth's electromagnetic emissions. And as we are energy receptors as human beings, we notice this effect on us. We notice this feeling that it brings up in us when the electromagnetic emissions shift. So this is the scientific idea behind eclipses, and also the idea behind what causes the astrological change within us, or feelings that alter within us. Now, in mundane astrology, which is world astrology, global astrology, solar eclipses, which I'll just say are rarer to see than lunar eclipses. Lunar eclipses, which are full moon eclipses, they're usually visible from up to 50% of the area of the Earth, whereas solar eclipses are only visible from a much smaller, more narrow area of the Earth. So according to mundane astrology, which is global effects of astrology, the full moon eclipses affect the masses, the people, the large populace, while the solar eclipses, the new moon eclipses, which is what we're coming up to this 22nd of September, they affect the leadership and change the leadership and alter the leadership in some way. So bring it on. We're looking forward to seeing what this will do. So any changes that come with a solar eclipse will be caused from the outside in, as opposed to the lunar eclipses, full moon eclipses, which change us from the inside out. Our feelings change our lives. As within, so without. Solar eclipses are as without, so within. They bring about external impacts, external changes to which we need to adjust and adapt. You might get offered a job on the other side of the country. How are you going to adjust and adapt to that? There might be a change in the dynamic of your relationship. How are you going to adjust and adapt to that? It's external circumstances that cause you to have to shift your internal energy when it's a new moon eclipse. Now, some astrological texts indicate that a new moon eclipse is felt stronger by people born during the day. That means when the sun was above the horizon when they were born. So the sun is the more significant indicator than the moon in a day chart. And because the emphasis around a new moon eclipse is on the sun rather than the moon, that is why those born in the daytime can feel the energy of a solar eclipse a lot more profoundly than those of us who are born at night. Now, eclipses always mark a turning point in life. The universe is intent on moving us forward, moving us into our destiny. And whatever happens, there'll be no going back from whatever occurs at the time of an eclipse. Be it a full moon eclipse or a new moon eclipse, there's no going back from what is brought about by the events of that eclipse. The energy is now, with this new moon eclipse, about realigning with your purpose, with your intent for this incarnation, and anything superfluous to your intent for this incarnation will be let go of now. If people that you know have, worn out their interaction with you, you don't feel like they're serving your higher good now, you may let them go, or they may let you go. Same with jobs, same with places of living, same with various circumstances in your life, even down to fine details like how you dress. If that's not part of your style, is no longer part of your destiny or your purpose or your mission, you'll change it completely. So whatever leaves now will be let go of for good. Also, whatever happens, we need to keep in mind, even if it's heartbreakingly sad sometimes, whatever happens is actually for our higher good, our soul's higher good, our soul's higher destiny, because that's the whole gist of karmic astrology. We are on a path of growth as a soul through many incarnations, many lifetimes, and part of it is orchestrated with the eclipses to move us forward in a pattern of growth. So whatever happens now is actually for our highest good, whether we can see it or not in the big picture. So remember, my friends, to always act with kindness to one another, to forgive one another, whatever unfolds during an eclipse, because you know what? you could be the one that someone else is letting go of. You could be the one that somebody is changing their life around, and that's okay. We don't actually owe anyone anything. Neither do we owe, own anybody else. We can't control, and we shouldn't be trying to control and manipulate anyone else. That will come back to us if we try to do that in dreadful karmic repercussions, either in this lifetime or another. We don't owe anyone anything. We don't own anybody. All we owe to one another is kindness, and that includes kindness to ourselves. And we need to remember this principle as we go through this time of eclipses, when there's so much change and upheaval unfolding on the planet. So my friends, we need to have space in our energetic awareness to allow in what needs to take place. Don't fight it. Go with the flow. This is always eclipses, especially if you've got natal planets around 29 degrees of Virgo this time. This is always an important turning point in our life when eclipses occur. So a complete change of pace is at hand with a new moon eclipse. Now, because of this, as I mentioned, keep an eye out, keep an ear out for some news of big life events that will affect you. I'm going to give you an example of this. With the full moon eclipse that occurred about a week ago when this video comes out, it occurred exactly opposite both of my parents' moon placements in their natal chart. Now, they're not into astrology, they don't care about it, but I've looked at their charts and I can tell that the moon of my father and my mother is at the same place. Quite ironic that they both have a Virgo moon. And the full moon in Pisces that occurred 2 weeks ago occurred exactly opposite both of their moon placements. What happened? Both of them got sick. I need to pay attention to this because my parents' illness that occurred at the time of the full moon eclipse will be having repercussions over the next 6 months that I need to be aware of. They may have health issues, they may need support, they may need care because of what I saw happen at the time of the full moon eclipse. Same deal for the solar eclipse. There will be, as I've just said, some news of big life events that will affect you at the time of the eclipse and are likely to play out and have some influence upon you for the coming 6 months. Solar eclipses, they tend to create new beginnings and bright new opportunities for us. So that's some good news. New moons represent new starts, turning over a new leaf, starting a new chapter in your life. And many of us are quite ready for that to happen. So in many senses, this is an exciting time of change. Often there's a random event that we didn't expect to happen, an exciting time of change brought about by some event that we weren't looking for, something that happens, like I've already said, outside of us. So again, I just reiterate, pay attention to all events, all news, all gossip, all interactions that you have within this eclipse season, the dates that I gave you before, 3rd of September to the 11th of October, because they're going to be important in your life going forward. Now, this particular eclipse is falling with the South Node. And whenever we have an eclipse falling with the South Node, there might be a letting go of something in our lives to make way for the new that wants to come in. So, as was the case with the full moon in Pisces, conjunct with the North Node, because of the nature of the particular type of eclipse and the node that it was conjunct with, both of these eclipses are about letting go of something to make space for the new that wants to come in. So letting go of maybe a business that you've been running so that you can have a steady job. Letting go of the place where you're living so you can move to the other side of the country. There is always some sort of letting go that will occur when we have an eclipse, like a new moon, new beginnings, but with the South Node, letting go. So if this eclipse happens to be falling with your sun placement, I'm going to talk extensively about that for my Patreon family, but I'll just mention here that if it does fall on your sun, it's going to be a very key year in the course of your life because it will be your solar return. And you'll carry the nature of this eclipse for a whole year rather than just for 6 months. If you happen to be a Leo person, Leo rising, Leo sun, Leo moon person, you can be more affected by this eclipse because the sun, which is the pinpointed factor, where are we? Up here, that this eclipse is centered around, rules your sign. So if you have Leo strong in any way, you tend to feel solar eclipses a lot more potently than other people. Now, I'll also mention that eclipses that are occurring in the same element as any of your key birth signs will generally be friendly to you. So for example, if you have your rising sun or moon sign in one of the earth signs, Virgo, Taurus, or Capricorn, then your sun, moon, or rising sign will be in a trine by sign to the current eclipse that's unfolding. And so that can feel more harmonious to you. Good events are more likely to happen when that's the case. So one thing that I do want to mention before we get into the chart of this eclipse is that if you're watching this video when I first release it onto YouTube, you will be in the throes of what we call the eclipse gateway. This is a very special time. It's kind of the crossover point between the two eclipses. It's the 2 weeks between, in this case, the full moon eclipse that occurred in Pisces on the 7th of September and the new moon eclipse that occurs in Virgo on the 22nd of September. Let me tell you a bit about eclipse gateways. They always follow cycles and they generally come in pairs. Sometimes you might have an eclipse gateway that lasts a long time because maybe you've got 3 eclipses in a row instead of 2. That's an anomaly. Generally speaking, they come in pairs. So these pairs include the lunar eclipse, full moon eclipse, and solar eclipse, which is the new moon eclipse that we're looking at coming up. So the time between these 2 pairs of eclipses, as we know, is called the eclipse gateway, and it's a period that lasts for the 2 weeks between the two, when both eclipse energies are active. Okay, we're getting this sort of double whammy effect of both eclipses. It's one of the most potent and magical times in the year because the energy of both eclipses, they merge and it forms a bridge between one state of consciousness and the next state of consciousness that we're being birthed into. It's a bit like a birth canal if you want to use that illustration. There are always huge points of growth this period. There are always huge points of awakening and change. So this moment between the 2 eclipse pairs is really a time of transformation and renewal in a big way. Now there's 2 different kinds of eclipse gateways. There's the gateway between a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, which is what we're experiencing now. But there's also a gateway that can be experienced between a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. So depending on the order of the eclipses, the energy can be slightly different. The intensity of the eclipse gateway will also depend on the intensity of the eclipses either side of it. Now, the recent full moon eclipse that occurred in Pisces was very intense because it was very close to being full. It was only 3 degrees from the nodes. This new moon eclipse, not quite so potent because it's not a total. It's only partial. So do keep that in mind, that it's not as powerful as the full moon eclipse that just occurred. Now, the eclipse gateway can also carry a slightly different flavor depending on the astrological signs of the eclipse that it's falling in as well. In this case, we're in mutable signs, so there's a lot more change that happens when we have an eclipse process happening in mutable signs, where it happens fast, it happens quick, and we really get our tree shaken by eclipses in mutable signs. But what does it mean when we're involved in, as we are right now, in the gateway between a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse? When we're walking this road, usually there's a theme of releasing and letting go in order to make space for the new. Lunar eclipses, which we experienced in Pisces on the 7th of September, they have the ability to pull and drag things out of us, almost like the moon's gravitational pull is pulling something out of us that's been buried deep in our psyche, deep in our soul. This pulling and drawing out energy helps us to actually release things that are no longer serving us and can bring up old thought patterns, beliefs, ideas, bringing them up to the surface so that we will clear them. We become conscious of them instead of them sort of always causing self-sabotaging behaviors in us. We suddenly become aware of what we're doing that's causing our life to be so stuck. So as we walk the eclipse gateway after a lunar eclipse, it's likely that we're going to feel drained, feel lethargic. We also might feel the need to go within and reflect and spend time on our own. Hidden truths and hidden feelings that have been buried deep within us, as they surface, we're going to have to deal with these old wounds that we'd pushed away and forgotten about. And now, oh my God, here's another layer of the onion coming up for me to address. The lunar eclipses they always challenge us to dig a little deeper and push a little further so that we can create more awareness around our thoughts and habits. And this is something that definitely intensifies as we move through this gateway period. You know, I watched myself during the eclipse that occurred on the 7th of September becoming highly triggered by the rudeness of comments and the lowbrow energy of so many people who leave remarks on my channel. And I'm always triggered by this, but it became worse for me around the time of the eclipse, so much so that I turned off my comments on the eclipse video. I just couldn't stand it anymore, sensitive Pisces that I am. Rightly so, though. You know, this is part of, the energy that is being pulled out of me. Okay, I don't respond well to criticism, and I just have to say, some obnoxious people, not only did they, once I turned the comments off, they felt that they had to jump online, go to my YouTube website, it's not my YouTube channel, my website, find the contacts page and send me an email to say their rude, horrible comments as well. Unfreaking believable. But anyway, this is part of what was being triggered and pulled out of me that I needed to address. And it gave me more awareness to my sensitivities. It gave me more awareness to it triggered in me decisions about how I'm going to deal with being a person with a public profile in the future. So lots of good things can come out of it, even though it's niggly and prickly and painful to have to deal with these things. Like I said, lunar eclipses challenge us to dig a little deeper, push a little further, and create more awareness about our responses, our thoughts, our habits, etc. So lunar eclipses actually bring endings, and these endings often occur during the gateway period itself, which is exactly where I'm at. I am changing completely my offering to the world through my new website, but also through what I'm going to be doing on YouTube in the future, because these endings come about during the eclipse gateway period, triggered by all that comes up for us during the lunar eclipse to begin the gateway period. Now, as we move closer to the solar eclipse, thank God, a sense of lightness usually follows and manifests, and we might even start to feel space being created in our life, like, oh, I can cope, or I do have peace, or there is enough time, and we start to feel a little bit more like, oh, I can breathe again. Thank God for that. So ending the eclipse gateway with a solar eclipse, as we're going to be doing on the 22nd of September, indicates that the months ahead are actually going to be very focused on creating the new, filling new space in our life with something more positive, more aligned, more in tune with the destiny our soul wants to achieve and wants to manifest. And it also indicates that the months ahead are going to be filled with action and energy, and you're going to be more supported to move forward by the universe. I'm excited. This is a wonderful, wonderful time. Now, it is occurring, as we know, in the sign of Virgo, and whenever we have a new moon in Virgo, but particularly when we have an eclipse, new moon eclipse in Virgo on steroids, it indicates that gradual improvements are now taking place in our life. We can focus on the details of life and get somewhere with those details. We can free our spirit when we're working at a high level of consciousness. We can free our spirit from overanalysis, worry, and overthinking. We can also focus more on how we can serve, help, heal, and fix things both in our lives and the lives of the people that we love. There's more of a focus on our health and well-being at the time of an eclipse, a new moon eclipse, or even just a new moon in general, in the sign of Virgo. And we can really start to support new routines in our life. And another thing that really comes up for us quite clearly during a Virgo new moon is the need to cleanse our life, to release from our life things that aren't working for us. And this includes quite literally cleaning our home, obviously our mental space as well, but our life in general. We're dusting out the basement of our life and getting rid of all those cobwebs. It is a refreshing energy when we have a new moon in Virgo. Now, let's take a look at this chart a little closer. I did mention a few things that were interplaying here, and we're going to go in depth with those now and what they're therefore going to mean, what we might notice in the energy around the time of this eclipse, or, as I said earlier, between the 3rd of September and also the 11th, up until the 11th of October. So we've got, firstly, this is occurring at the 29th degree of Virgo. So we've got the moon here and the sun right next to it. And that is what's creating the new moon. But also because it's so close to the south node over here, that is why it's an eclipse. So it's at the degree of Leo. The degree of Leo. Now, the degree of Leo is all about, and some of these issues might come up for us during the eclipse period. It's all about what we love, what we like. And so this eclipse can bring about a knowing of what we like and what we love and a wanting to experience that all the more. It can actually, the degree of Leo is about love and love affairs. So that can occur as well. It's about value, top quality, something of a higher level. So we might start looking for something that's a bit more, elite or a bit more important than what we've already experienced in life. We might be very drawn to some sort of leadership or rulership in some area of our life in some way. We might seek to be more high ranking than we have been in the past. The degree of Leo, according to the wonderful and must to be remembered Nicholas Stoyanovich, who is the orchestrator of the degree theory, he believed that the 29th degree, or the degree of Leo, was actually in association with secondary schools. So there might be something to do with a secondary school that's important for you during this time. Indeed, for me, my 2 children will be graduating from high school during this eclipse activation period. So for me, it's very much in perfect alignment with the idea that the degree of Leo is associated with secondary schools. Summer holidays, summer vacations are often linked to the degree of Leo. It's not the case down in the southern hemisphere that we are in summer, far from it. Come on, summer, hurry up. And you're in certainly the last throes of it in the northern hemisphere as you move now into autumn or fall. But the general gist of the degree of Leo is about summer holidays and vacations. So you may be planning for your next summer holiday or vacation, or buying a summer vacation home, or looking to invest in some sort of summer vacation program or something like that. There's something to do with summer vacations or holidays for some people who are being affected by this eclipse. To be in the sun has to do with the energy of the degree of Leo as well. To be on a hill, to be on a slope, to be in entertainment places, things like concert halls and, the center of town, pubs, restaurants. These are Leo-like places. To be involved with acting in some way, or actors or actresses, to be involved with the theatre in some capacity. To go to the theatre is a Leo degree energy. To be connected to sports stadiums in some way is also a Leo degree energy. Children are part of the Leo degree energy as well, and so is finding your way back to your childlike heart and your childlike sense of joy and wonder. So these could all play into something that happens to you around this time of this eclipse as well. Joy and optimism and to be fond of life, these are some of the meanings of the degree of Leo. To be proud, to be dignified is also part of the degree of Leo, as is professorship, which is very interesting. So that is the degree of Leo. Now, the eclipses, new moon eclipses cause the moon to become dark for about 3 days, actually, not just at the time of the exact eclipse, but for about 3 days. So the moon becomes dark, and this then is a time for becoming introspective and weighing up our inner world. And this means assessing how we feel at the very core of our being. No more hiding things in the basement, hiding our weaknesses, our struggles. Our darkness is going to now see the light of day under this influence. So expect, as I've already mentioned, that deep things will be revealed to you because of the nature of the new moon in general. Another thing that's occurring as a part of this eclipse chart is that Pluto down here is the only planet that will be out of bounds for this eclipse. So I'm going to write OOB here. That's what I use to symbolize a planet that's out of bounds. Pluto in Aquarius. Now, oh my God, this is huge. Pluto in Aquarius. I don't know if you've heard people talking about it or read anything about it, but I'm going to be discussing as its own topic Pluto out of bounds with my Patreon family live astro chat this October. So I won't go into the details of what it means to have Pluto out of bounds and the phenomena that it is here. Suffice it to say, it is a long-term influence. It only happens roughly every 80 years, and it is life-changing for years beyond this eclipse energy itself. So do consider joining the Patreon family to be able to participate in that live astro chat this October about Pluto out of bounds. But it is a part of this eclipse. However, it's going to be much more long-ranging and long-reaching than just this eclipse energy. I need to just mention that. Fixed stars. Okay, fixed stars in this eclipse. We have Markeb in a projected placement with this eclipse, and I love this. Can't wait to tell you about this. Markeb has the nature of Jupiter, and it sits in the constellation of the ship Argo. Now, those of you who are familiar with the story of Jason and the Argonauts know that the ship Argo is the ship that they sailed on in that story. Ironically, my husband David and I, we love to watch movies together, and last Friday night David chose to watch the old 1960s version of Jason and the Argonauts. And so we watched it, and then it wasn't until I started preparing for the eclipse video that I'm like, oh, hang on, this eclipse that's coming up is conjunct with the fixed star Markeb in the constellation of the ship Argo. Oh my God, it is, the timing, the way the celestial energies work, like it was just one of those synchronicities that just kind of blows your mind sometimes. Anyhow, the legend of this constellation Argo is that this is the ship, obviously, that Jason bought the Golden Fleece back from stealing it, basically. He did, from the people who'd had it for years, and brought more peace and tranquility to the place where he was from. So, this is said to be the first ship ever built, the Argo. I mean, these are all myths and legends, aren't they? But the influence of this constellation, and particularly Markeb, the fixed star, is quite fascinating. According to Ptolemy, most of the stars in the ship Argo constellation have the energy of Saturn and Jupiter. But Markeb solely has the nature of Jupiter alone. Okay? So unlike the others, which are a bit of a mixed bag in this constellation, Markeb is profoundly full of blessing of the great benefic Jupiter. And so this constellation of Argo is said to give prosperity in trade and voyages. It's also said to give strength of mind and spirit. So we might be seeing or feeling that more. Some of us tune into the fixed stars more than other things. So those of us who are inclined that way will tend to perhaps see an influence of trade, travel, and strength of thought, strength of mind and spirit at this time. Now, when we have the sun in a conjunction with the projected fixed star Markeb, it gives, and I'm going to quote you here from the traditional writings, it gives high preferment in writings, in business, religion, martial arts and martial occupations, and any occupations that require research. So you might be drawn to those things perhaps. Anybody who has this the sun in a conjunction with Markeb natally, who'll be having their solar return with this eclipse, they are usually going to be the kind of people who have a lot of knowledge. Doesn't mean it's always useful knowledge, but they do have a lot of knowledge, and they tend to put that knowledge into some productive use in their life. Now, that's the fixed star Markeb with the nature of Jupiter playing into this particular eclipse. Amazing, lovely story. Now, we've talked about Markeb being conjunct here. We've talked about it, 29th degree being the degree of Leo, but it's also the anaretic degree. So let me tell you about the anaretic degree. It is believed, well, the anaretic degree firstly is the final degree of any sign. It's the 29th degree. So if you have planets in your natal chart around the 29th degree, the anaretic degree, then what I'm going to describe here is actually applicable to you throughout your life on occasions when that particular degree in your chart gets triggered by transits or eclipses or full or new moons, those sort of things. So the 29th degree, the anaretic degree, and therefore this eclipse energy can bring about more clairvoyance. In fact, I would say any of the clairs, clairsentience, clairaudience, the ability to hear the divine messages, the ability to see things beyond the normal, the ability to see clairvoyance, human destiny. So under this eclipse energy at the anaretic degree, we might get a glimpse into our human future through something that occurs. Now, people think, it's got to be something woo-woo, like all of a sudden a puff of smoke like you see in the movies and there's an angel standing in front of me giving me a message. Not necessarily. Oftentimes, we might get a vision or a glimpse of our human future by seeing all the protests happening around the world and the standing up to, a horrific authority and overreaching plutocracy. We might see a bit of that going on, as we have during the previous eclipse that happened in Pisces, although it wasn't at the anaretic degree, but we saw this happening. That might be the glimpse of our future. So it doesn't necessarily mean some way out woo-woo, purple robe wearing kind of crazy new agey stuff. It could just be that we see something happening in the world and, my God, that's actually a bit of our destiny at play there. So the anaretic degree can also bring about a heightened intensity of feeling. So it could really ramp up our emotions. It could ramp up the reactivity that we experience under this eclipse energy. But anaretic degrees always bring about a peak when they're triggered by transits, a peak moment of culmination, a demanding of closure and a demanding of resolution in our life before we can begin with our new beginning. So there is going to need to be some culminating factor as a result of this eclipse, some closure that is required, some ending that is needed. There is a focus on endings when the anaretic degree is getting triggered. It's the final degree of Virgo, after all, in this case. Important decisions need to be made when the anaretic degree gets triggered. Spiritual transformations occur when the anaretic degree gets triggered. Lessons need to be mastered before we're going to be able to move forward because of the anaretic degree. Fated events occur, and there, as I keep reiterating here, there's a need to complete unfinished business. So make sure you dot your I's, cross your T's about laying to rest old habits, old behaviors, old beliefs, and old unfinished business that needs to be done and dusted. If you can do that under this eclipse, you are in a profoundly blessed place to move forward with your life. There will be also a sense of urgency. A feeling of, okay, I'm in a bit of a crisis here. Something's got to shift. Something's got to change because I'm stuck and I've got to get out of this stuckness. Got to get out of the quicksand. So this is the energy of the anaretic degree. You may feel into that in some capacity as a part of this eclipse energy. Now, I want to point out the shape that is forming with this eclipse. So what we have going on is an opposition between the new moon, sun and the moon, in conjunction, opposing Saturn and Neptune down here. Saturn's at the final degree of Pisces and Neptune's in the early degrees of Aries. So that's an opposition. We're going to be talking about that in a minute. But not only that, there is also a trine from this new moon, and this is where blessing comes in, to Uranus in the early degrees of Gemini. And we also have a trine from the new moon to Pluto out of bounds in the early degrees of Aquarius. So what this then creates, you will see, with a sextile from Uranus and Pluto to the conjunction of Neptune and Saturn, we have a kite shape forming. So there, Pluto and Uranus are blessedly currently in trine to one another, and they're making a sextile to these other two down here. This is what's holding space, this beautiful minor grand trine up here between the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. That is the divine energy watching over our planet right now, holding space, as they say, for what is unfolding. So the divine can hear our prayers. It's watching over us. We need to keep this in mind when we are freaking out and falling into anxiety about the state of the world right now. But this all together with this eclipse is forming a powerful kite shape. Now, despite the tension of the opposition, the overall configuration of this kite shape, it brings benefit. It is a powerful and positive pattern for accomplishment, for self-realization, and for indicating, like triggering the time for things to happen. This is the most successful configuration that a person can actually have in their natal chart. And in this chart of the moment, it's an indication of very special events that are unfolding now in your personal life and in world momentum. I find this particularly exciting. Now, I've just said that the opposition that's occurring between Saturn and Neptune and the Moon and Sun it's difficult. An opposition is always difficult, but it's not as potent as it would usually be without this blessed kite shape forming. So I'm going to tell you about some of the effects of Saturn and Neptune in opposition to the new moon and what can manifest from that. But I want you to keep in mind, take it with a grain of salt, because this kite shape is really where it's at, creating benefit, blessings, and opening the door to opportunities for us despite the friction of the opposition. So firstly, let's look at Saturn in opposition to this new moon energy. We might feel a bit restricted by our outer circumstances. There might be some duties and responsibilities we have to address. Could be a time when we have to work hard. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be bad to work hard, but we might feel that there's a lot to do. There's a need for endurance and patience and discipline and perseverance during this time. Your physical energy might feel a bit lackluster and low. Do guard your health and be kind to your body at this time. Sometimes our physical ambitions feel like they're delayed in some way or are blocked in some way. We might feel like we're getting criticized and disapproved of. Knowing that this is going to happen will probably mean I'll turn off my comments for these videos as well. But that can be part of this energy. Criticism and disapproval is a Saturnian thing. But it is also a period of deep self-evaluation, and from that, self-growth. Be careful of losing perspective of self, though, forgetting your strengths and just burrowing into a lack of confidence. I'm no good. This always goes wrong for me. People hate me. They're always criticizing me. Ugh. So there is also, with an opposition, an opportunity to move out of the potentially harmful life circumstances. Saturn makes us stand up and say, right, I'm going to change this. I'm going to put in the work required to get out of this circumstance. We can start to own our desires. We let go of outworn attachments when Saturn is in opposition to a new moon like this. It does bring about psychological advancement and a growth in maturity through difficulty, okay? Now, it can also mean that there's going to be a significant older person or boss or authority in your life in some way that might be frustrating you. Certainly, I see our government represented by Saturn, and it's certainly doing that, left, right, and centre, no matter where you look in the world. My thoughts and prayers actually go out to Germany right now, where their government, God knows what's going on there with all the deaths of the people in politics that are standing up to government. Absolutely disgusting. Rise up, Germany. Also, Saturn opposition to this new moon, the universe is actually causing us to release childish behavior, to release self-centered behavior. And we might be being confronted about any childish behaviors that we've had. Some women, because of this opposition, might have some issues with their husbands. Some people might have issues with their father. Fathers might be in poor health or being a bit more strict or severe. It is not the best time for promotions and career progress. Anyone who's being triggered by this eclipse with personal planets needs to be conscious of their spine, their heart, and their lower back at this time. Take time to rest and relax and avoid feeling discouraged and worn out as much as you possibly can, and remain flexible and open to change. Be aware of any guilt that is cropping up in you, causing sadness and regret, and don't go down the rabbit hole with those thoughts. See it, detach from it, be aware of it, and resolve to change. Remember, it's a time of endings and new beginnings. I will just say, because of the opposition of Saturn, the fresh starts that are established may not yield fruit for some time. For example, you might get an invitation to go to a job interview. Well, you might not get the results of that job interview for some months yet, as they go through all the candidates and weigh things up. So these fresh starts that begin during the eclipse may not fruit for you for a little while yet, because of the Saturn opposition slowing things down. Now, as for the Neptune opposition to the new moon, I'm forewarned, forearmed with this one, Kesenya. It can cause us to feel too sensitive, too vulnerable, and very moody. Okay, be aware, that could be on the cards. We might feel like we're a bit lost, a bit in the mist, like life is lacking some sort of direction. Loss of life perspective can occur during this eclipse. There can be problems. Past failures in life might be blown out of proportion. You might take things way to the extreme because our judgment's a little bit skew-if, a bit faulty at this time. We can lack objectivity and can lack common sense because of Neptune's opposition. Again, a bit like Saturn, we can feel a great deal of sadness, but in the case of Neptune, it's over our unfulfilled hopes and our dreams that didn't, produce any manifestation. We can feel a victim, and victim mentality is very, very dangerous mentality to be in. I think a lot of the time, those who like to think they're in charge of the world try to enforce victim mentalities on people so that the people are kept low energetically. So if you are in a state of victim mentality, work hard, my friends, to overcome it, because that is what keeps you stuck and what pressed down in life. When we feel like a victim, there's a loss of optimism, there's a loss of idealism and enthusiasm and inspiration. And they're the things that make life taste great, that we want to participate in and enjoy. We might, under this Neptune opposition, want to escape from the world and escape from mundane responsibilities. We could feel a bit more disappointed with the results of our efforts. Hello, Kesenya, probably regarding how many people watch my videos on this eclipse. Life can feel very unfair and feel very hard. We can feel tired, and I would just suggest take some self-care. Rest up, eat well, get healthy exercise, get out in nature, socialize to avoid depression and to avoid sort of detrimental isolation and loneliness. Surround yourself with people who appreciate you and remind you that your life is worthwhile. Stress might be felt more severely because of Neptune's opposition, and you might be more impressionable. Avoid addictive substances at this time. Guard against deception by people in authority, government officials, because especially this is Neptune opposition to the Sun in general, but especially because it's also conjunct with Saturn, that might be the case. We might feel that our intuition, though, in the positive, can be a little bit heightened by this opposition. And certainly I feel that the kite shape will be feeding into that. There is a sense of, oh, hang on, I know what's really going on here. And that powerful mystical experiences that can be experienced. Oh my God, I have to just share with you, my friends, my divination capacity has just been off the charts lately. I'll pull a tarot card or an oracle card or something like that. I'll look at my palm because I'm into palmistry. And oh my God, the revelations that I'm getting from these divination experiences are beyond anything I've ever known before right now. So I'm loving it. I would just say, be careful in business dealings. It might be a time to postpone major decisions in a business dealing situation because of the opposition to the Sun from Neptune. Now, I want to talk, since we've discussed the opposition, I want to talk about some of the really good stuff happening with this kite shape, which is the trine from out of bounds Pluto and the trine from Uranus. Let's start with Pluto. This is a time, this eclipse is going to be sort of held for us. All the difficult things I've just talked about are going to be held in place and not allowed to get too wild at all because of Pluto and Uranus. The Pluto trine is a time for manifestation of your personal power and potential. You're going to feel more psychologically integrated at this time. It's easy to access your talents and abilities. You're going to feel more strong, more confident, more physically vital. It's a really good time for personal growth and development and self-improvement. And that can also translate to your material circumstances as well as your inner circumstances. There's an ability to heal both the self and others in a psychological capacity and also in a physical capacity in some instances as well. If you're a healer, it's a really powerful time for you. Conditions can improve in friendships, in your love life, or in any area where you consciously direct your focus. Pluto gives this pinpointed focus, and the healing energy flows there. A strong sense of purpose, a strong sense of clarity accompanies a Pluto trine to this eclipse. It's a time of developing more magnetism and charisma than you have experienced before in life. Leadership opportunities can evolve for you. Success comes from your own exertion of willpower. You might get benefits from men that you know, because the sun rules men, and the sun is the key factor in this eclipse energy. So it might be men that are blessing you, father figures in your life that are blessing you and uplifting you. Wonderful energy. There's often a regeneration of relationship quality with father figures. So if you have had a falling out with a father figure, this is a time of perhaps rebuilding that connection back. Father figures actually in life can become successful and powerful during this energy, thanks to the trine from Pluto. So, especially if you're a father figure with key planets getting triggered by this eclipse, you could really move powerfully into a beautiful destiny, or you could grow your spirituality and self-improvement at this time. For women, there's a potential to meet lovers who are dynamic and intense and driven, even famous, with this combination of energy. It's a time of good experiences because of this combination with bosses and authority figures. You can really get involved in anything occult like yoga, astrology, metaphysics, spiritual practices. They really go well now. You'll be quite intrigued by them. Again, do my astrology courses available at my website. You will love them. You can really expand your consciousness now. The intuition that you carry and the psychic capacity that you carry can really expand and grow under this eclipse energy. You might have a strong sexual pull as well. Sexual desire can be increased by this in the best of ways, not in any sort of detrimental or negative kind of ways. There's an influence of remarkable willpower as well, making us more pioneering in our own lives. So take advantage of this wonderful energy of Pluto making a trine to this eclipse, because success can be closer to grasping thanks to Pluto's lovely energy. And what about Uranus's lovely energy? Well, Uranus brings exciting opportunities and beneficial change when he is trining, as he is, the Sun-Moon conjunction here. You're going to feel a profound sense of inner freedom. You might be more unconcerned about society's values and opinions now, and shouldn't we all be in that situation? Like, I don't care what they say, I'm standing for truth, I'm standing for righteousness, I'm standing for what is important. That's very Uranian. You might also be extremely creative and original now. You might experience flashes of genius. It's a time for trusting your instincts. You know which direction to take. You can trust your gut. You might be feeling more vibrant and spirited than ever before, which is a wonderful counteraction to the lackluster energy of Saturn opposition the Sun. So again, we come back to a state of balance there because of that. And we also feel a bit more flexible and adaptable than usual. Yes, I can move to the other side of the country for that job. No worries. You are more successful in all your activities under the trine from Uranus. You can seek new knowledge and new ways of being, and it just comes easily to you. The truth is revealed to you with a trine from Uranus. So you're gonna know the truth in your gut, and it's going to be shown to you by the universe. This is what's really happening, guys. This is what the media is not telling you. This is what the narrative doesn't want you to know. This kind of thing will come out more because of this wonderful energy involved in the eclipse. Again, with the trine from Uranus, just like the trine from Pluto, you can become more interested in astrology, yoga, tarot, metaphysics, all those occult practices, or also any activities that have to do with science, computers, and electronics. Again, if you want to study astrology, have a look at my webpage at the Learn Astrology page and see what's there available for you, because Uranus trine to the eclipse energy can make you really hungry for more of that knowledge of astrology. Involve yourself in any enjoyments that you might otherwise have been too timid to participate in, whatever that might look like. You can also benefit from bosses and men and people in charge, because the sun is that masculine energy that it is what this eclipse is all about. Leadership roles, again, can be attainable because of Uranus's influence in this kite shape. Your luck is stronger at this time. You might meet people who are really ahead of their time as well, sort of very progressive, very visionary, very future oriented. If you're a woman experiencing this energy, as 50% of people are. You might meet an exciting man who will become, maybe a lover or a committed partner if other transits are supporting this energy in your chart personally. And any old, boring relationships that have run their course and have nothing left to offer you and not part of your destiny, they can also end now, but it's going to be a relief that they do, not a burden that it ends. Some people might change jobs now and the transition will go smoothly and without a hitch. Good news. And also there's an increase in magnetism that comes from this trine from Uranus as well that makes us more socially desirable, which is very nice, of course. Now, we've talked so much about the nature of this particular chart, the degrees, the stars, the configurations, etc. I want to mention one last thing before we talk about the Saros cycle of this eclipse, and that is the fact that it's occurring in lunar mansion number 14 in the ancient lunar mansion system. There was a system in China, system in India, and a system in the ancient Hellenistic culture that talks about the mansions of the moon. It's known as nakshatras in the Vedic system and Chinese lunar mansions as well. But what I'm referring to here is the Hellenistic understanding of lunar mansion number 14. Lunar mansion number 14 has to do with prudence and analysis. You might be in that zone more than ever because of this eclipse. It also has to do with finding security and establishing security, something that I know we all want to start experiencing in life again as this planned demolition of Western culture is implemented as the 2030 agenda. We actually hunger for more security, and it's worth fighting for, can I just say. Love and friendship are represented in the lunar mansion number 14. Tantra is also part of the energy of lunar mansion number 14, as is magnetism. Justice and the relief of suffering also form part of lunar mansion number 14. So themes of this nature might be unfolding around you in your personal life and on the larger world scale because of the new moon eclipse occurring in lunar mansion number 14. And now I want to talk about the Saros cycle. I talk about the Saros cycle in all my eclipse videos because it's so important to know. Saros cycles are the cause of eclipse families. I'll explain how in just a second. And they repeat every 18 years. And this is why you'll hear many astrologers saying, go back to what you were doing 18 years ago and see what themes and influences are repeating now. Because 18 years ago, we were in this same Saros cycle of eclipses. Okay, so lunar Saros series, which are the full moon Saros series, they last about 800 years. They begin at the equator and they contain about 45 to 47 eclipses per Saros series family. But what we're looking at here with this new moon eclipse is part of that same family, but it's a solar Saros series. The sun is the main focal point. It's a new moon Saros series, and it's in the same family as the lunar eclipse that we had in Pisces 2 weeks ago. And now solar Saros series are 1400 years long, so they last longer than the lunar Saros series, and they begin not at the equator but at the north or the south pole. Now this solar eclipse Saros family carries the energy of the initial eclipse series birth chart. Now in that original chart, guess what? Saturn and Neptune were once again in conjunction with one another, just as they are now in this eclipse. Very interesting that we are in that repeating energy. Fascinating. And so the themes of Saturn, Neptune, which I've described, but this time in opposition to the eclipse, are going to be perhaps a little more pronounced because of that. Health issues might surface. There might be some paperwork and communications that need to take center stage in your life. News comes that feels fated. That's generally with eclipses in the first place, but this particular eclipse has that influence quite strongly because Mercury was also conjunct with Neptune, Saturn in the original eclipse chart. So we get fated news, we get fated messages, and like I said, paperwork and communications tend to take on a special importance. And there might be, because Mercury is mental energy, and when it's conjunct with Saturn, we worry too much, we might get news that we worry over. So do be conscious that because of this particular Saros cycle, there might be a level of anxiety that goes along with this eclipse energy. Recognize it for what it is. Don't get too perturbed. If you need to, take a day off and rest in bed to deal with high overload of anxiety, do what you need to do in that sense. Now, where will the eclipse go? I'm going to show you now the path of the solar eclipse and the countries that will be able to observe it. So here is the view of where this solar eclipse is going to move through and the places where it's going to be visible, basically just New Zealand and Antarctica, little fringes of Australia. Now, this is very interesting because we are in a very new solar eclipse. This is why it is partial, and this is why we have only a portion visible, and it's obviously beginning down at the South Pole rather than the North Pole because we're in the early stages of this eclipse cycle. This Saros series began in 1917, and so when we look at what's happening in the world right now and compare it to similar things that happened in 1917, you're going to see a lot of similarities because this eclipse cycle is currently playing out, and it began not so long ago in 1917, but it's got a long way to go. It's going to finish roughly in the year 30 something. So I haven't got the information in front of me, but that's why it's just a small patch, and that's why it's only visible way down south. Remember I said when I was talking about the Saros series that they always start at the South Pole or the North Pole. When it's a solar eclipse, they start at the equator for a lunar eclipse. And because this particular Saros series started in 1917, I'll get it right, we are just beginning this particular 1400-year journey with the cycle of this eclipse family. So basically, it's not really going to affect very many people, and maybe that's a good thing this time. Now, what if you have key planets interacting with this eclipse? Well, my Patreon family are going to get individual messages all about the planetary conjunctions with this eclipse. But if you do have them, if you have planets sort of within 5 degrees of orb of the 29th degree of Virgo, those planets are going to be activated now. My husband David has a very important planet at that point. I'm fascinated to see what it will do in his life. So this new moon energy is going to see new beginnings for anyone with planets around 29 degrees of Virgo. And you may be planting new seeds in your life that will grow over the coming 18 years that are planted now. So also, things that you were doing 18 years ago might be being revisited now under this eclipse energy to do with the nature of the planet that is being triggered. So for this eclipse energy, you will need to have a planet or important point within 5 degrees of orb. You may also like to consider a planet that is within 5 degrees of orb, trining, squaring, or opposing this energy as well, and I'll discuss all of that for those who are Patreon members who'll get the extended version of this video. But now, my friends, it is time to look at the effects of this eclipse energy through all the signs. Well, Sagittarius, on the 22nd of September, there will be a partial solar eclipse in Virgo at 29 degrees, and this is your 10th house. And of course, whenever we have any significant transit or effect of the planets in an angular house, we feel it so much more powerfully, so much more strongly. So this is going to be very powerfully felt for you, my Sagittarius friends, especially if you happen to have your MC or any other degrees around 29 degrees of Virgo. What can you expect? Well, it's going to bring sudden changes and new beginnings into your life. But first, there'll be an important turning point, a culmination and an ending that needs to happen. In fact, there can even be something of a cleansing that needs to occur before the new beginning arrives. This is happening in Virgo after all. So what are some of the effects that we might notice happening in the lives of Sagittarius people? Well, firstly, this happens to be the parental axis. The 10th house, 4th house is the parental axis, and this can indicate that there might be changes in the life of one of your parents. It's a turning point or a culmination or an ending in the life of one of your parents. Now, often in the Western culture, we associate the 10th house with our father figures, but to my observation, the 10th house actually corresponds to the parent who wears the pants. So that can sometimes be a mother in some cases, sometimes it's the father. But either way, the 10th house is the more prominent out there in the world parental figure. Potentially, there can also be a turning point associated with a mother-in-law as well. Now, what's very interesting to me about this is David, my husband, is a Sagittarius rising, and the 29th degree where this occurs is triggering a very important point of his chart. Interestingly enough, around the time of the previous eclipse in Pisces, my mother, David's mother-in-law, got very, very sick and I had to go to hospital. She had concussion and influenza. And so this was an important turning point in the life of my mother as she reviews her health going forward for the next 6 months. Now, this is playing out through things that are happening in my mother's chart, but interestingly enough, also playing out in my husband's chart in the house of the mother-in-law. Can't make this stuff up. This is astrology showing how accurate it always is. So it could be that one of like your parents, the parent that wears the pants, or a mother-in-law figure in your life, if you are a Sagittarius rising sun or moon, might be going through a change. Now, it doesn't have to be a negative change, like having to go to hospital and then reassess your health care going forward for the next 6 months. It could be something really wonderful that happens to a parental figure, like maybe an opportunity to retire and put up their feet at last. Maybe it could indicate a moving to a new home, or maybe it could indicate a new career unfolding. Whatever it is, there is a change represented by this eclipse happening in the life of one of these parental figures. Now, there might be some faded news that you receive about a parental figure or a mother-in-law type figure. There might be some important decisions that need to be made around this figure in your life. You know, how are we going to care for mum going forward and make sure that she's well and looked after and so forth in the next 6 months as this eclipse energy unfolds. There will be probably some sort of decision making that will be required by you and other maybe family members as well regarding the care or the attention needed for your mother, father or mother-in-law's circumstances. Sometimes, and I've mentioned this throughout these readings, that there is a sense of urgency and a bit of a crisis kind of feel to the effects of this eclipse unfolding. So that might be, as was the case with my mother, you know, a bit of a crisis. She had to go to hospital. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a sickness for everyone. It could just feel like a sense of urgency. Oh, mum's got to get out of her house because she sold it and we've got to find her a new place to live. Maybe she'll have to come live with us until she finds a new place to buy. So there's this sense of urgency surrounding the changes that are arriving in the life of a parental figure as a result of this eclipse. So special events can be unfolding in that sense, but also this is the house of career. This is the house of the aspirations that we have for our worldly achievement, and potentially this is the house of authority figures. And because the sun is the main indicator of a solar eclipse, that represents a significant man having something to do with our life. So a significant man in a position of authority can catapult you into greater worldly success and recognition, my beautiful Sagittarius friends. So this could look like some guy who perhaps puts on, retreats or runs conferences or something like that, invites you to come and speak or asks you to get involved in whatever it is that he's putting together, and you get to have a bigger profile and be seen with your speaking prowess or whatever it happens to be. It could be that somebody works for a company and you want a job at this company, and they could put in a good word for you because they have a very high profile at this company. So this is what we're talking about here. Somebody of significant authority and clout in the world can actually vouch for you, push you forward, and lift you up in some capacity as a result of this eclipse, especially if it's falling on important trigger points in your chart. Not only that, but this eclipse can trigger like new positions of leadership for you. They could, usually something will have to end for this to happen. Maybe you've been investing and running your own business or something, and you just decide it's not floating my boat anymore. I'm not getting the joy out of this that I once did. So I'm going to look for a role as a mentor or a leader or a teacher or something like that out there in the world rather than running my own business. So there's a turning point required, an ending of one dynamic with career or worldly success or the legacy that you're building in order to move into something new. Now, That doesn't necessarily mean for everybody that you're going to quit one job and move into a completely new field, a completely new career. It means a turning point, and sometimes that can mean getting a promotion to move up to a new management level or a new leadership level. Doesn't necessarily mean changing careers. However, an eclipse really shakes our tree, really gets us out of a rut. And a lot of the time, when we have an eclipse occurring in our 10th house, we can discover the career of our dreams. And sometimes that opens up for us, especially if it's part of our destiny. You know, if we've been fluffing around with our lives, not really going anywhere, just sort of twiddling our thumbs, getting by, paying the mortgage, doing what we have to do, and not really living to create our legacy, living to create a career or a destiny for ourselves, then this eclipse gives us a good kick in the pants, gets us back on track with what is really going to float our boat, what really fills us with joy in terms of leaving a legacy. Now, I've heard some astrologers say that when it comes to leaving a legacy, the 10th house and being associated with leaving a legacy is just full of egotism, and it can't be that at all. I don't agree, because take a look at the chart. The 4th house, as we all know, is the house that corresponds to the heritage, the roots, the lineage that is left for us by those who've gone before. It's what we receive, so what we receive from our parental line as a legacy, not necessarily an inheritance, but it could be a cultural heritage, cultural traditions. It could be, anything that is handed down to us, like a family business that we receive from those who've gone on before. That's the legacy they leave us. That's a 4th house thing. So opposite the 4th house is the 10th house. Naturally enough, that's the legacy that we're building to pass on to those who come after us. Now, that legacy can be almost anything. You might leave a legacy of maybe you write a book for your grandchildren, and that's the legacy you want to leave because it makes you happy. It's part of your destiny to know that your grandchildren are going to have wonderful books to read. So you write a series of books for your grandchildren. That could be the legacy that you want to leave. The legacy that you want to leave might be that you make so much money that you become a philanthropist and leave a hospital and a school with your name on them. That might be the legacy that you leave. There can be anywhere in between those two polarities, but the legacy that you want to create is seen through the up here, the 10th house. That is the legacy that we're building. So there is a real turning point that's coming with this eclipse that's going to help you obtain more worldly success and achieve a career that feels like a legacy to you. Whether that's writing an album of songs or leaving some works of fiction, whether that's leaving a beautiful garden or an orchard and a property for your children, it's a legacy, 10th house energy. So there is an emphasis on building your legacy, whatever that may be for you. So you may move into a position of leadership, but if you do, it's going to be because it floats your boat, it's part of your destiny, and it's part of the legacy that you as a soul came to experience building in this lifetime. Now, not only that, but I do feel this is the house of our public image and our reputation. Can I just say, my beautiful Sagittarius friends, this energy in Virgo is all about cleansing. And I did speak about this in the introduction. This is about cleansing our life of things that are not serving a good purpose for us, that are not helping propel us forward to build this legacy that I'm talking about. So many of you are going to need to cleanse your public image and reputation now, and I encourage you to do this as soon as you can before this eclipse unfolds. So that might look like going through all your social media channels and getting rid of any incriminating photos or statements, or going through your LinkedIn and updating your profile. Really do a cleanse on your public image, your public profile, and your reputation as much as you can. We need to, when there's an eclipse in our 10th house, we need to watch out for gossip or difficult news about our reputation. So the best thing you can do to start things off is to not give anybody anything to talk about. Not anything that is embarrassing or incriminating or abusive or anything like that. We need to clean up our public image so that this eclipse will not harm us in any way in terms of reputation and public image. Now, also on this topic, we see that the 10th house has to do with how we gain recognition and success. And so I would suggest that your good reputation, your good public image is how you're going to go about gaining recognition and success at the time of this eclipse. So again, cleaning that up is a worthwhile endeavor to undertake. But also, it's through service for Sagittarius people. That the energy of Virgo is to serve, to help, to heal, to fix. How can you do those sorts of things? How can you bring some level of service to the world that will ultimately help you achieve more recognition and success? You know, Virgo is connected often, I find, with people who end up being teachers, because teaching is a mechanism for serving other people, serving people to know more, to understand more. And of course, Sagittarius is the Jupiterian ruled energy of the great teacher, the great guru. So sometimes, you know, service is, it's not like going and cleaning the local public toilets. Service is, how can I expand the awareness of others, bless others, teach others, help them to fix a problem. In the case I'm illustrating here, lack of education might be a problem. How can I gain recognition and success is by offering Virgo service to help, to heal, to fix something that is out of balance in the lives of people. That could be just simply by providing some sort of information, not necessarily teaching, but you know, information around how things are out of balance, why things are out of balance. Sagittarius is a sign that has to do with publishing. So there could be opportunities for you to move into explaining things to people through publishing mechanisms, you know, like I said, social media, Substacks, you know, blogs, things like that. Could also be a part of what gains momentum for you now under this eclipse energy. And the image that you need to display in order to be successful is seen from the 10th house as well. So once again, we come back to this need to clean up public image in whatever way, shape or form you need to, but also that goes beyond social media and comes back to how you're conducting yourself out in the world, the way you're speaking to people, how you're honoring people, the way you're lifting people up, and you know, raising people's sense of worth and value is a beautiful offering that we can give in order as an image that we display in order to create more success in our lives. Now, there could be some fated events that come with this eclipse energy, fated news. You might get, you know, a job offer in the mail, or, you know, maybe you put in for a job 4 months ago and you've got all about it, and along comes this eclipse energy and suddenly you get an email saying, hey, we want to interview you, we're ready to go with all our interviews 4 months later, and you're like, wow. Surprise news, fated news and events that really can propel you forward in terms of career, worldly aspirations, and the achievements that you want to make that build your legacy. So that's what I'm feeling into for our beautiful Sagittarius friends. Now, Sagittarius, don't forget to join me for a deep dive into more about the nodes of the moon and how they affect our lives personally in our natal charts and by transit, as well as the nature of eclipses. I've got 2 special webinars on sale now at my Learn Astrology page dealing with these fascinating topics just in time for eclipse season. And speaking of my website, I want to let you know that I'm winding back my old website in preparation for putting out my brand new website in the next month or so. And part of the goodies that are on offer at that new website, which will be launched in the next month or so, will be me offering one-on-one sessions with people. Now, I have never done live readings with people before. It's always been pre-recorded. That's largely because I'm a Pisces rising, very private and somewhat insecure about putting myself out there with others. But the North Node crossing my first house, Pisces rising, has kicked my butt about putting myself out there and making that offering to the world. So do keep your eye on the YouTube channel, because I'll be letting you all know when that's up and available and ready to rumble. Now, for full details for your sign, my Sagittarius friends, you can get the entire report at the Patreon family. The link's in the description below for that. But for my Patreon members who are all ready to go with finding out what else this eclipse has in store for you, let's dive in deeply now.